And he said, Bill, this is Art Divine. How would you like to become a member of the Grand Ole Opry? And that's like saying, how would you like to go to heaven when you die?
For more than 6 decades, the name Bill Anderson has been spoken with reverence in country music circles. To fans, he is not merely a singer, not merely a songwriter. He is a living thread connecting country music's golden age to its present. They call him Whisperin Bill, a man whose soft, intimate delivery stood out against the booming voices of his era and carved him into the history books. Yet now, at the age of 87, Bill Anderson is once again in the headlines. But this time, not for a chart-topping song or a prestigious award. Instead, the world of country music was shaken by a shocking accident, one that has forced the unthinkable. Bill Anderson stepping away from the stage he has called home for more than 6 decades. The story broke quietly at first, whispered through Nashville circles like one of his own gentle melodies. Bill Anderson had fallen. At 87 years old, such an incident may sound ordinary, almost trivial. But anyone who understands the realities of aging knows the devastating risks such an accident carries. For a man who has stood as one of the most dependable performers in the history of the Grand Ole Opry, the news hit like a thunderclap. Whisperin Bill, the constant, the cornerstone, the bridge between generations, sidelined by a freak accident inside his own home. The first reports left fans reeling. Cancelled appearances, withdrawn commitments, and most shocking of all, an empty slot at the Grand Ole Opry, where Bill has been a fixture since 1961. To say it was jarring would be an understatement. For many, Bill Anderson's presence at the Opry was a given, as certain as the curtain rising. He wasn't just a performer, he was part of the institution itself. To imagine the Opry stage without him was like imagining Nashville without guitars, or country music without stories. Social media lit up almost instantly. Fans who had followed him since the early 1960s flooded Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram with prayers and well wishes. Younger fans, those who had discovered his music through Brad Paisley, Kenny Chesney, or one of the many modern stars who recorded his songs, joined the chorus, often writing how surreal it felt to worry about the health of a man who had always seemed untouchable. "Get well soon, Bill," they wrote. "The Opry isn't the same without your whisper." And yet, as devastating as the accident was, it also triggered something remarkable. A renewed recognition of what Bill Anderson means, not just to country music, but to American culture. Because the truth is, while the accident was shocking, what it revealed was even more powerful. It reminded everyone just how much Bill has given, how much he has endured, and how deeply he is woven into the fabric of the genre. Born James William Anderson III in Columbia, South Carolina, on November 1, 1937, Bill didn't seem destined for superstardom. His voice wasn't booming. His presence wasn't commanding. And yet, when he sang, it felt like he was speaking to you and only you. That whispery delivery, a style so different from the crowd, became his identity. His breakthrough came with City Lights, a song he wrote that became a smash hit for Ray Price in 1958. From that moment on, he was unstoppable. Songs like Still, Tips of My Fingers, and Mama Sang a Song weren't just hits. They became cultural touchstones, etched into weddings, funerals, heartbreaks, and celebrations across America. What makes the current headlines so poignant is that Bill Anderson has always been more than a performer. He is one of the most recorded songwriters in Nashville's history, a man whose pen has gifted hits to legends and modern stars alike. He has been inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, nominated for Grammys, honored with CMA awards, and celebrated as one of the last great bridges between tradition and modernity. His collaborations with Brad Paisley and Alison Krauss, even in recent decades, proved that relevance does not fade with age. That is why the accident feels so heavy. Because Bill Anderson isn't just another artist whose shows were canceled. He is a cultural anchor. His absence at the Opry isn't just noticeable, it's seismic. And yet, true to form, Whisperin Bill himself has met the news with resilience. In a heartfelt update, he thanked fans for their prayers, admitted the challenges of healing at 87, and promised he wasn't done yet. His message was filled with gratitude, humor, and quiet determination, the very qualities that made fans love him in the first place. So what happens next? Will Bill Anderson return to the Opry stage? Will he scale back his performances and focus solely on songwriting? Or is this accident a turning point, marking the twilight of his performing career? No one can say for sure. But one thing is undeniable. His legacy is already untouchable. His whisper will echo through country music for generations, no matter what comes next. This is the story of Bill Anderson, his accident, his resilience, and the unshakable bond he shares with millions of fans who refuse to let his whisper fade into silence. Country music has its share of legends, towering voices, outlaw rebels, innovators who redefined the genre. But only one man has ever been known as Whisperin Bill. For over 60 years, Bill Anderson's soft, intimate singing style and unmatched storytelling have carried him into the hearts of millions. He is a Grand Ole Opry icon, a country music Hall of Famer, and one of the most recorded songwriters in Nashville history. His songs have been sung by everyone from George Strait to Brad Paisley. His presence has been as steady as the Opry curtain call. And yet, in September of his 87th year, headlines shattered that sense of certainty. Bill Anderson, the man who seemed eternal on the Opry stage, had suffered a shocking accident that forced him to cancel shows for the first time in decades. The news struck like lightning. Bill Anderson had fallen at his home, sustaining injuries serious enough to keep him from performing. On its own, that headline might not sound world-shattering, but when applied to an 87-year-old icon, the implications were impossible to ignore. Bones don't heal as quickly. Recovery isn't guaranteed. And for someone whose very identity has been built around showing up for his fans, the idea of being sidelined was almost unthinkable. The cancellations began to roll in. A small festival appearance here, a songwriter showcase there. But the most gut-wrenching announcement was this: Bill Anderson would not be performing at the Grand Ole Opry. To the casual observer, it may sound like another calendar adjustment. To fans, it was a shockwave. Bill Anderson has been an Opry member since 1961, longer than many of today's stars have been alive. For him to miss a night wasn't just unusual, it was unprecedented. Immediately, questions flooded social media. Was this the beginning of the end? Would Bill ever return to the Opry stage? Fans who had grown up hearing Still on their parents' radios joined fans who had discovered him through his collaborations with Brad Paisley, all united in concern. Posts poured in by the thousands. Get well soon, Bill. The Opry isn't the same without your whisper. Praying for you, legend. The accident didn't just highlight the fragility of age, it reminded everyone of just how much Bill Anderson means to country music. His career is not simply a catalog of hits. It is a living history lesson, a bridge that connects the 1950s to the present. Born James William Anderson, the third in Columbia, South Carolina, in 1937, he was never supposed to become a star. His voice was too soft, his style too unconventional, but his words, oh, his words, had power. His first big break came in 1958, when Ray Price turned his song City Lights into a chart-topping hit. From there, Bill Anderson's career unfolded like a tapestry of American life. His own hits, Mama Sang a Song, Tips of My Fingers, Still, became staples of the genre. Meanwhile, other artists recorded his songs by the dozens, cementing him as one of Nashville's most prolific and enduring songwriters. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Anderson didn't fade with time. He evolved, penning modern hits and collaborating with stars half his age. His partnership with Brad Paisley on Whiskey Lullaby proved that even in the 2000s, Bill Anderson's songwriting could stop listeners cold, which is why the accident feels so personal to fans. Bill Anderson isn't just a performer, he's a companion through life's milestones. His songs have played at weddings and funerals, accompanied heartbreaks and celebrations, provided comfort in moments of grief. His voice has always been there, gentle, steady, unshakable. To think of him silenced, even temporarily, felt like losing a friend. And yet, Bill Anderson himself has shown the same resilience that has carried him through decades of triumph and tragedy. In a heartfelt message, he thanked fans for their prayers, acknowledged the difficulty of recovering at 87, and promised he wasn't done. He even lightened the mood with humor, reminding everyone that while his body may have stumbled, his spirit had not. So where does this leave Whisperin Bill? That's the haunting question. Will we see him back on the Opry stage? Will he pivot fully into songwriting and mentoring? Or is this, at last, the twilight of his performing career? One thing is certain: Bill Anderson's story is not finished. His accident may have interrupted the music, but it cannot erase his legacy. His songs will still echo across radios and stages. His whisper will still reach into hearts. And fans, shaken but loyal, will continue to hold on to the promise that as long as Bill Anderson draws breath, his story and his song will never be over. This is not just the story of an accident. This is the story of what happens when a living legend faces fragility, and how the music he gave us becomes his greatest source of strength. Bill Anderson's career is a story that could have easily never been written. Born James William Anderson III on November 1st, 1937, in Columbia, South Carolina, his early years gave no hint of the legend he would become. His voice was quiet, understated, an unusual tool in an era dominated by booming baritones and commanding stage presences. But what some might have considered a limitation, Anderson turned into his greatest strength. By the late 1950s, while working as a young DJ and dreaming of bigger things, Bill wrote a song called City Lights. Ray Price recorded it in 1958, and overnight, Anderson's fate shifted. Suddenly, he wasn't just another hopeful. He was a songwriter with a voice that Nashville couldn't ignore. That one song opened doors that had seemed permanently shut, and before long, Bill was carving his own identity as a performer. His gentle, almost conversational singing style drew fans closer. It didn't shout, it invited. With songs like Tips of My Fingers, Still, and Mama Sang a Song, Anderson captured something universal: the raw emotion of everyday life. His music wasn't about spectacle, it was about connection. Each lyric carried the weight of lived experience, and fans embraced him not only as a performer, but as a confidant. It wasn't long before Nashville gave him a nickname that stuck: Whisperin Bill. At first, some might have thought it playful, but as time passed, it became his identity, his signature. Whisperin Bill wasn't a gimmick. It was a reflection of who he was: soft-spoken, thoughtful, but with a voice that carried further than anyone expected. Over the years, Anderson's influence only grew. He became one of the most recorded songwriters in the city's history, with his work appearing on records by Connie Smith, George Strait, Kenny Chesney, and Brad Paisley. When the industry shifted, when trends rose and fell, Anderson adapted. He co-wrote Whiskey Lullaby with Paisley and John Randall, proving that his pen was as sharp in the 2000s as it had been in the 1960s. But beyond the charts and accolades, Anderson gave country music something far more important: continuity. He became a fixture at the Grand Ole Opry after joining in 1961, performing for 6 straight decades without losing touch with his audience. Through cultural upheavals, through the rise of rock, the explosion of pop country, and the constant evolution of Nashville's sound, Bill Anderson remained steady, a reminder of where the music came from and what it meant at its core. That is why the news of his accident landed like a body blow. Whisperin Bill wasn't just another artist, he was an anchor, a tradition. When reports surfaced that he had fallen at home and sustained injuries serious enough to force cancellations, fans knew instantly this was no small setback. The first shock came when Anderson's name disappeared from the Grand Ole Opry schedule. For 6 decades, he had been as reliable as the house lights, always there, always steady. His absence wasn't just noticeable, it was historic. Nashville insiders whispered that his injuries had left him needing extended recovery, and though his team insisted he was in good spirits, the silence of the Opry stage without him spoke louder than any press release. Cancellations piled up. Festivals, songwriter showcases, appearances on television and radio. For fans who had bought tickets months in advance, the disappointment cut deep. But beneath that was worry. Bill Anderson had built a reputation for never letting down his fans. For him to step back meant that something serious had truly happened. The response online was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of fans shared personal stories about how Anderson's music had guided them through heartbreak or loss. Others posted concert footage, tagging him with encouragement. Even younger country artists, those who hadn't shared his era but grew up idolizing his songwriting, took to social media to call him a mentor, a hero, a bridge between generations. Country music journalists noted something unusual. The accident didn't just spark headlines, it sparked reflection. In an industry often driven by what's trending now, Bill Anderson's name was suddenly everywhere again, not because of nostalgia, but because of urgency. Fans realized that the living legends who carried the torch from the genre's golden age are becoming fewer and fewer. And in Whisperin Bill, they saw more than a singer. They saw a living embodiment of country music's heart. Amid the speculation, it was Bill Anderson himself who calmed the storm. In a personal update posted to his official website and social media accounts, he broke the silence with the same sincerity that had always defined him. He began with gratitude, thanking fans for their prayers, their well wishes, their stories. He admitted that the fall had shaken him, that healing at 87 is no simple task, but he reassured everyone he was recovering. More importantly, he wasn't done yet. In classic Anderson fashion, he sprinkled humor into the message, making light of the situation in a way that eased fans' hearts. But what resonated most was his honesty. He didn't hide the struggle, nor did he dramatize it. He spoke as he always had, with humility, openness, and a quiet strength that felt like a whisper of comfort to all who read his words. The update was more than just news. It was a statement of resilience. Whisperin Bill may have stumbled, but he had no intention of bowing out.